Joining me in studio is Eric Kabbara with United Realty Group. Now, Eric Kabbara has over 100 agents underneath him. He's really widespread throughout California. The guy is truly an expert. He's a teacher. He's an educator. So it's always great to have him in here, Mr. Kabbara.
Thanks for having me, Craig.
So you're going to help us understand how to understand the contract. You know, people put money down on a contract. They go in, sounds very binding, but how do you get out?
Exactly.
Are you legally liable? These are things we need to know about. But there's a really interesting article we're going to pull up here on the Union Tribune. I think this was Wednesday of this week, talking about the affordability of housing here in San Diego. And it rated San Diego to be the number 2 highest in the country for affordability. Now, that being not affordable. So when you hear something like that, that's got to spook some people. How do you educate your agents? How do you educate your clients?
It's a heck of a statistic for San Diego, and like you're talking about, you know, rates are down now. It's been a little bit of an up and down over the past few months with everything that's going on, but very affordable. Who doesn't want to live out here?
Yeah, you could always move back to Missouri, where I'm from. Is that what you want to do? Yeah, so you got to pay a little bit more for that ocean breeze.
Yeah. Do you mention that because you're headed to the World Series?
I will be headed to the World Series.
You will be.
Thank you. As the Cardinals take out Boston. So you know, I thought when we were looking at this article, I figured I would do a little calculation here. I have a smartphone, a cracked smartphone, so smartphone, dumb user. If you look at a $500,000 loan, right?
Yep.
We have a mortgage calculator, and you did 4% interest rate. Now, interest rates move, so don't get too hung up on some of these numbers. And you did on a 30-year fix, which is your typical term. I don't know if you guys can zoom in on that. Yes, you're going to see a cracked screen. All right. 23, there we go, $23.87 for a $500,000 mortgage. So I mean, that's what people are paying in rent. So this idea that it's not affordable, it's incredibly affordable. What if you bought that house and you rented out one of the rooms? I mean, or you moved on and then you rented it behind you. So I want to get caught up in these articles. I mean, it was a factual article. I'm glad that the UT put that out. But the reality is it shouldn't spook you. There's a lot of opportunity to buy.
Absolutely.
So you go in, you buy a house, you go into contract, right?
Right.
I remember when I bought one of my first homes, not really understanding the contract that much, and thought I was bound, had an earnest deposit, I think of $5,000 at the time.
Sure.
So let's speak about that. We have what you can do to get out of a purchase, and then also what are I guess what's the recourse?
Sure.
So here we have what can you do to get out of a deal. Can you explain this? This is such a good piece of information for our audience.
Absolutely. So you have what's called contingencies in a purchase contract, and think of contingencies as sort of a safeguard, if you will, a protection for the buyer and the seller in a transaction to essentially be able to cancel the deal, back out of it within a certain period of time and for certain specific reasons. Now, most of these contingencies are geared towards the buyer. The buyer has a laundry list of different reasons they can actually get out of a transaction. Yep. The seller, not so much. So we'll kind of go into these in a little bit more detail in just a second. But I think that this is very, very important for buyers and sellers alike to really be aware of, because it's sort of like you're going into real estate is one of the biggest purchases of one's life. So that being said, you want to know the playing field. You want to know the rules of the game in order to best leverage them for yourself and make the best decisions from the very onset on how you actually want to structure that transaction.
What if you can't get out? I mean, what if you're in this deal and your appraisal contingency or financing contingency is up? Is there lawsuits? I mean, what happens?
There absolutely can be. So, just running through a couple of these contingencies, you mentioned the financing one. You have the loan and the appraisal contingency. The first one's on the slide there.
Right.
Typically a buyer wants to get pre-approved on a loan before they start going out there and making offers.
Part of the
process.
process.
Most of them do. It's a great thing to do. But when you get an accepted offer, there's still a part of that lending process that isn't yet complete. A lot of it has to do with the property, inspections on the property, the title report, things like that. So for one reason or another, if the financing does not end up going through, the lender pulls out on financing that purchase.
Which can happen. The question that someone's going to ask you, though, is why, if I'm approved for financing, I have my approval letter from whoever,
right,
why would my loan get shot down? I thought I was approved.
You very well may be approved as an individual. Your income, your assets, your credit, all of that is in line. However, the financing may not end up going through ultimately because of the actual property itself. a certain construction deficiency or other defects on the title report. So it's a lot of different reasons that I've actually seen people lose their financing midway through the transaction. It's very important, Craig, for people to be aware of the fact that under no circumstances should they remove that loan contingency unless they have a full loan commitment from their lender first.
What recourse? So this is if you were to get past your contingency, what they can do, correct?
Correct. So
I know we got a slide for that.
Yep. By default in California, the due diligence or contingency period is 17 days. So you have 17 days to remove those contingencies. Now, let's just say, for example, we're talking about loans here. The loan contingency gets removed. The real estate professional should absolutely be advising against that. Let's say it gets removed and the lending gets pulled by the lender, doesn't go through. Yep. Well, now the seller essentially has a case to go sue the buyer in court. And they can.
Does that happen a lot? I mean, have you seen some ugly stories of that?
You know, the good news is most of the time you see this stuff being able to be resolved without having
outside.
to. Yeah, outside of court, exactly. In the worst of cases, absolutely. It can get kind of ugly. It can go to court. So really, preventative measures is really what you want to concentrate on. Try to avoid ending up in some of those situations.
I imagine the amount of inventory in a market will affect the recourse. If there's a lot of buyers out there, low inventory, who has time to go file a lawsuit versus a slower market if you try and back out.
You hit the nail on the head. We just came out of a very hot market over the summer past few months, and it was very common for a seller to get an offer on a property. A week later, they get a higher offer. So they had a lot of sellers asking, hey, can I get out of this transaction with buyer A and go with buyer B? No, not really. You can't do that unless the buyer breaches the contract. So in a market where you have a hot market, you have a lot of offers coming in, the seller's probably not going to pursue the buyer. If you have a very slow market, that offer is the only one on the table, there's a very good chance the seller may actually go after him in court. So a lot of it, like you said, depends on the current market that you're actually in.
Well, Eric, we get a lot of questions at craigsewing.com. We get a lot of questions out in the marketplace, and so we developed a segment called The Man on the Street. You want to stick around to The Man on the Street with me?
I'd love to. Let's do it.
All right, so this is where we can answer your questions. Now, I got to encourage you, if you ever have any real estate, financial planning, mortgage questions, you want to connect with guys like Eric or any of our real estate elite, just go to craigsewing.com. There's a contact form. Reach out to me there. I promise you I will get back to you, as I always say, before my head hits the pillow. But let's hit the street and see what some San Diegans have to ask us. Put us on the hot seat.
Let's do it.
What up, Craig? We're here on the basketball courts in Kearny Mesa, and we got another question for you.
All right, my name is Edward, and I just want to ask you, where's a cheaper place to buy a house in San Diego?
Great shot, Ty. Great shot. So
That's
where's the
right.
cheapest place to buy? Actually, they shouldn't be asking me. Eric has over 100 agents underneath him, so you cover pretty much all of California, is that right?
That's right.
Cheap's a bad word. You don't want cheap.
Value.
Right. You inexpensive, where can you get a good bang for your buck? I'll say this, Santee is one. We just talked with Kyle Whistle, $274 price per square foot, if I remember correctly. 42% lower than the rest of the market of San Diego. That's affordable, that's inexpensive. Are there any other markets that you like?
North County, there's a lot of really nice places. The nice thing about North County is you kind of have both sides of the spectrum, the really luxury side and a little bit cheaper. So, Oceanside is a nice coastal city. You can find some very affordable housing there. San Alejo area is also very, very nice. The one downside there is the HOA fees, but you get very good bang for the buck as far as what you're actually paying for the property versus what you get.
When you say inexpensive, Eric, what kind of price range are you referring to? I mean, are we talking 600,000, 300,000?
In Oceanside, for example, there's properties in the hundreds, a lot of more attached homes.
Oh,
okay,
geez.
low 200s, all the way up to 6, 7, 800,000. So pretty wide range there, and it's again a coastal city. So
let's go back to the basketball court and see if we can't find another man on the street.
Hey Craig, I just got married and now I'm looking for to buy a home, and I'm wondering what kind of paperwork is involved.
A lot.
Your firstborn, be ready to give him up. I mean, that's really what it is.
Absolutely.
It's
at least about a stack that fat, and it's very important paperwork. You want to actually read it. The last thing that you want to do is get this paperwork and throw it on your desk, never look at it again.
Well,
So
it's the last thing the market wants is less paperwork. I know people get so aggravated. We get this question all the time. Like, I sent my mortgage guy this, and why have I have to get so much paperwork? Look, when you used to only have to fog a mirror to buy $1 million house, that's a problem. I mean, when we get asked, is there a real estate bubble? I say no, but if things like that came back in the market, you should be careful.
I'm a very big advocate of reading everything that you sign. So you want to know what you're getting into. You want to know everything up front. Sure, it's going to be a little bit of a pain to read all that stuff, but 30-day escrow, not a big deal. You're going to own the property for many years, big investment.
Be ready to go. If you're serious about buying real estate, you have to get your pay stubs, your W-2s, your tax returns, your bank statements. You have to be available. There's going to be a lot of paperwork. That's part of it, but that's why it's an opportune market, and that's why the market is protected, is because the financing is not as easy. So when you get your financing accomplished, it actually has some value to it. All right, we got one more we can get in here.
What up, Craig? I actually got a question for you. If I'm looking to buy a home and make some money, who doesn't like to make a little money? What's a good starting price for me as a 24-year-old college graduate?
I thought he was going to be a professional NBA basketball player and be able to pay cash money for a house. You saw that left-handed crossover, didn't you?
Yeah, that was nice.
Break someone's ankles with that move. Look, what was his original question? I don't even remember. I always get thrown off. But
I think he said, what's a good starting point to buy a house at?
Yeah, it's not about making money. It just happens to make money buying real estate. It's about finding a home that makes sense for your short and long-term goals, your living standards. If you're a recently married couple, young family, this can be your starter home. You're going to build memories there. That's what buying real estate's about. Everything else we talk about, we want to educate you. Interest rates, numbers, building equity, it's all important. But you buy it because it's a home, and you got to live there. Eric Kabbara, we got to get out of here. Thanks for coming in here.
Thank you, Craig. Pleasure.